there is recession. But recession is not the best time to cut back on investments. It's actually the time to go on offensive, to go on overdrive, to do more, to plant more, to sow more. But just know that sowing alone will not cut it, because in the normal times, if you sow, heavens will supply their rain. But today, you are not just responsible for sowing, you are responsible for also supplying the rain. And here is where it gets tricky. My name is Chima Christian, and this is day 13. Today we are looking at thriving in drought. The story is that of Isaac. So if you have your Bible, just go to Genesis 26 verse 12. Then Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. The man began to prosper and continued prospering until he became very prosperous. For he had possessions of flocks and possessions of herds, and a great number of servants. So the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, and they had filled them with earth. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." Then Isaac departed from there and pitched his tent in the valley of Gerar and dwelt there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water, which they had dug in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham. He called them by the names. Also Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found a well of running water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "The water is ours." So he called the name of the well Esek, because they quarreled with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that one also. So he called its name Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called its name Rehoboth, because for he said, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in this land." Wow, this is the story of Isaac. And many people, when they read this, especially Nigerian Christians, what they see is, then Isaac sowed in that land and reaped 100-fold. Then Isaac sowed in that land and reaped 100-fold. That is true. And this was a man in recession. The story here is about drought. Anyone who have seen documentaries, is quite an arid place. It's quite a dry place. The amount of rainfall in a year, if at all it comes, is quite low. But then, even in that minimal amount of rainfall they experience periodically, at this time around, they were in recession. They were in drought. The heavens have locked up. Now, today's class is not the day to investigate why the heavens were locked up. Today's class is to investigate how he reacted to locked up heavens. Leadership is a difficult task, never an easy task. Even leading in terms of prosperity is not an easy task, let alone leading in times of recession, leading through difficult situations, leading through hardship. And that's what we want to discuss today. So the first thing about hardship, or maybe before we even get to that, maybe a little recap of yesterday's class, because this is a build-up to that of yesterday. And then how many people have noticed that we are now dealing with concretes? But then we're mixing the concretes with the abstracts. Remember that we said that governance models are really, you can put them in two buckets: governance abstracts and governance concretes. Abstracts deals with ideas, philosophies, frameworks, mindsets, paradigms, where you're discussing things that like governance, climate change, postmodernism, democracy, dictatorship, justice, ethics, morality, socialism. They are abstract concepts They are not tangible, but they are ideas that once they hold or they take hold of a man, it can guide the tangible actions of that person. Then we say that the study of concretes, if you remember, is the study of specific individuals or specific events with a view to instructing present day leaders so they can put up a man like Abraham Lincoln, like Isaac, like Abraham, like David, to study events, maybe a drought, maybe an earthquake, maybe an important event, maybe a global recession. For instance, in America today, they still talk about the Great Depression. The Great Depression. It was not just a recession, they call it the Great Depression. So they study it to be able to make sure that the economies don't go into that kind of depression again. So the study of concretes is about study of events and humans, whether they be historical, but many times historical. And then other times you can also project into the future to simulate how events might shape up. Yesterday we talked about Abraham, and he is one of the four patriarchs. He's one of the many, about 4 or 5 patriarchs that provided leadership. But as of today, we are discussing Isaac. And one of the prominent things about Isaac's life, this is not the only thing to discuss about his life, but because we are only assigning one topic to one individual, we are now assigning the topic of droughts and managing droughts to Isaac. So the Bible says in Genesis 26, then Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. And when many people look at this, they clap, and maybe it deserves some ovation. But that's not the only thing to see here, because that's not the only place the story stops. If the story stops there, we will not know how he sowed. So the first thing about drought is that natural things cease. Prosperity may be second nature to some. Maybe they plant their crops, the Lord sends the rain, voila, it grows. In times of drought, minimal efforts may not be able to produce results again. Going to the market and coming back will not solve the problem. Opening up a shop and closing it will not solve the problem. If it is drought, that thing that you did and it got you by in times of plenty, once there is drought, if you do that again, you will not get the same result. When there is no drought, all you need to do is to sow and you will reap. In times of drought, people don't sow. Even if you sow, the crops will fail. And that's why many people invest and lose their investments. You see today, many businesses are shutting down, many people are losing their employments, and many more will yet lose their employments because it's a season of drought. And there is a way to manage drought. And today we're learning one of them. Remember yesterday we talked about guiding lights. We talked about inner and outer lights that helps leaders make decisions. Again, that class is recorded thankfully, but the recording is not yet available publicly. And so when it becomes available publicly, we'll announce it and we'll encourage people to go listen to that class, especially those who missed it. But you see, this was not the only drought that was recorded. I want to read for you, I think, the story of Naomi. I'm reading Ruth 1 verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled, that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to dwell in the country of Moab, he, his wife, and his 2 sons. So you see, the thing about drought is that people want to run away. That's the first thing about droughts. People want to run away. That's the first thing about hunger. The immediate reaction is flight. But flight is a reaction to drought, but not the only reaction to drought. In fact, some flights have led to undesirable outcomes. In the case of Ruth, if you read down the story, you can read Ruth chapter 1, verse 1, the whole of chapter 1, and then you can read chapter 2 and 3. I think that's just 4 chapters in that book. Very easy book to read. It was a recession like this. It was an economic hardship like this. It was a potpourri. And then the drought just happened to the economy. Once there is drought, it also affects security. Because once people are hungry, frustrated, angry, don't know where to get their next meal from, then insecurity happens. So there was drought, there was also insecurity. And so it typifies something that is happening in a country we all know today. There is drought, there is food inflation, but then there is also insecurity. The man was Elimelech. So he left with his wife and his two sons. And then his two sons got there and got married. But the man died in Japa. He died abroad. The two sons died abroad. So now the wife is a widow. And then the two daughters-in-law are now widows too. So not only has he lost his life, he has lost his only two sons. And now he has left his wife alone to cater to these two young maidens. And the woman, you know the story, told the one of them to go. One of them went, told the other one to go. The other one said, I'm not going with you. And you need to read the story of this woman when she eventually came back. I can tell you this for a fact. Before taking a flight in the period of drought, it should be commanded. The inner light and the outer light should agree. Or at least the inner light must agree. By inner light, I am referencing the class called guiding lights. The thing about running away from drought is that the inner light must agree. If the inner light does not agree with running away from drought, oftentimes it leads to unmitigated losses. And that reminds me, many young people are now taking the decision to run away from Nigeria, not because it serves their purpose, not because it serves their overarching vision, not because there is a strong why, not because the inner light says so, not because the outer light says so, but because it feels that it is the in thing to do. Because everybody is running away. And then if you don't take time, people are now tempted to run away. And we're reading the story of one woman who ran away, one man who ran away with his children. It is not everybody that is running away from Nigeria now that will, some of them will spend 20, 30, 40 years and they will find out that they wasted their lives. And I'm praying seriously for young people. Don't be under immense pressure. Let your first reaction to drought not be wrong. Even if you're going to relocate, because drought can cause people to relocate, even if relocation was to be part of the options, let it be commanded. In the story of Abraham, he ran, but it was commanded, and he almost encountered a loss, if not for the Lord's intervention. Remember that when he encountered drought, he moved southward and was on his way to Egypt. Remember when his wife was accosted. Remember when he told his wife, if we go there, tell them that I am your brother. If you ever say that I'm your husband, they will kill me. That was him reacting to droughts. You also remember how the children of Israel eventually moved to Egypt. Although that was a divine plan, but it was commanded. It was commanded. But then Isaac wanted to run. But the Lord says, stay, don't move. And he stayed in the land. The Bible says that he planted in the land and he reaped 100% return on investment. But that is only half of the story. That is only half of the story. That is only half of the story. The other half is important for us to understand how to manage difficulty. Once there is drought declared, the processes become difficult. Now, in terms of normal planting season, now farming is a tedious job, I'll admit, because I've farmed myself. Tilling the land, especially with crude implements, is quite hard. But now, not only is this man going, that's why we wait for the rains before we till the land, so that at least the rains will soften the land a bit. But now, for you to see what is happening here, not only is this an arid or a dry land, it has stopped raining for a while For it to be a drought, the rains was not fall for 1 year. That's one full cycle. So this rainy season, nothing came. We can now say, okay, we're now in drought. It's not as if in dry season you say there is drought. You must wait for the rains to fail before you can now declare drought. And in this particular case, the rain failed. It did not come. What that means is that the earth becomes twice as hard. If I were the Bible was speaking of this, it says, I will make your earth bronze. That if you are tilling the earth, it will be as if you are tilling a stone. But this man tilled that land. On a normal day, if it rained, the process of tilling will not be that difficult. But you saw the difficulty it took him to till the land. So yes, many people are going to experience difficulties of all kinds to do businesses. But it dissuades a lot of people from tilling. A lot of people prefer to be jobless now. A lot of people, they tell you, I'm no longer going to work. My going to work, you can't afford my basic salary. I can't, my transport to work cannot this, that. There is a lot of excuse. A lot of excuse not to till the ground. They will prefer to till when it is soft. But in terms of drought, the best reaction is to keep tilling. Although it is much more difficult, but we must have to keep tilling the ground. But after you have tilled the ground, with all that difficulty, if we stop there, the crops will fail. And you saw what happens to the Philistines. Because of the difficulty they were experiencing, they did not till their ground. Because of the difficulty they were experiencing, they did not till their ground. So they were watching this man, say, foolish man, upon say, how will it rain? Let me see what you will do. And he was tilling the ground. But it's not enough. What God taught that man was irrigation. And that was what God taught Abraham that made him rich. You know, when Nigerian Christians read Abraham's blessings are mine, should we tell them that Abraham worked so hard? Let's go back to Genesis chapter 26. This man did dry season farming. This man did irrigation. He has to manually dig a well, dig it many meters into the ground in dry season. Kept digging the ground until they got water. And then they had to manually bring up the water. People who have lived in villages where they have well water will know that you have to dig deep down before you. There are some places that are the water on the surface. By the time you dig 6 feet, the water is there. In dry places, you have to dip tens of feet into the ground before you find water. This was what this man did. He digged that, despite the fact that he's blessed. Abraham's blessings are mine. Can you dig a well? He dug wells. And after digging wells, out of envy, the Philistines came there and shut it down. They don't want to dig, but they want everybody to be poor. That's why I'm not so enthused by Democratic Party manifesto in the US. So some of you may not agree with me, but I'm not so enthused with this public policy that demonizes the rich. I'm not so enthused with this public policy that tells the poor that they are poor because the rich is rich. Many times, I am not saying that people are not taking unfair advantage of the system, but many times you find that there are people who really work hard for their money. And when you see their work ethic, you will say it is justified that they have this kind of results. Abraham was one of them. Isaac was even more so. These people will not till their ground. They will not dig the well. They will not pull out water because not just are their crops failing, the animals were failing because the animals were not seeing water to drink. First of all, there is no green grass for the animals to forage on. But again, there is no water for the animals to drink. So the crops are failing, the animals are dying. And this man dug a well. Every morning, his animals are well fed. His animals are well watered. His crops are well watered. Instead of waiting for, so now in times of normal times, the heaven sends their rain. In times of drought, you make the rain happen. You seed the cloud. You make it rain. It's no longer enough to plant a business. You drive its process of growth. In terms of plenty, all you need to do was to open up a shop, put goods there, people will come and buy. Today, you have to do much more than that in times of drought. If not, the goods you put there will expire. But this man dug his well, and the enemies went there. Instead of asking, can we draw water from your well? And this is something about envy that is self-destructive. Someone that has not eaten today, instead of begging the person who has, can you show me the way? You are going there to block his way. And as if the person being hungry will satisfy your hunger. I don't understand envy. You don't have. But your satisfaction is that the other person don't have. This is witchcraft. This is witchcraft. The person does not have, but you see someone succeeding in drought. Instead of asking for the way, you are saying they are all go people. They are ritualists. And this was what happened if you read Genesis chapter 26, which is an anchor scripture. So the process of managing droughts is working extra hard. That realization that what worked in terms of plenty will not work in terms of recession is enough. But the good thing is that recession is the best, I won't say the best time, but people who dig wells and plant in recession, you see where the Bible says that after the recession, the man prospered. You know, during the recession, he prospered until he became prosperous. Because now he's controlling the food in the area and he can put it at his prices. And I'm not saying that you should now use exorbitant prices, but he has what others need. And therefore, the few gold coins they have will gravitate towards him because he's solving a problem, not just for himself now, but for others. Many times when the economy slows down, people whose hearts are not trained lock up their monies in the bank. People whose hearts are not trained pull back from actively deploying themselves. People who are not well versed, people who are not like Isaac, will go and sleep like every other person, waiting for the rain. No, Isaac don't wait for rains. He makes the rain happen. They dug wells. Today we can do cloud seeding thanks to technology. If you don't take time, it will be as if science and God are quarreling. No, science and God are not quarreling. God is the God of sciences. God is the God. He is the one that gave us the intellect. He is the one that gave us the outer light. He is the one that gave us the brain to study our environment, to study the culture, to understand what to do to make things happen. You know, I recently had the story of a group of scientists. It was a metaphorical story, of course, used to teach, but it was quite interesting to me. But a group of scientists went to God and they said, God, you know, we have so much advanced in tech that we can now create our own human beings. We have so much advanced in technology that we can now create, you know, all manner of things. We don't need your help any longer. Thank you for all your help, but from now, we've got it all figured out. And God says, okay, well, thank you. No problem. Since you don't want my help, I'm not going to give it anymore. So you said you can create human beings. Yes, go ahead and create. And they bent down to collect dust of the earth. And God says, no, you have to create your own dust. If you want to make cars, create, and you want to give yourself credit, make sure you are the one that created the iron ore. Make sure you are the one that created all the inputs. Don't take out any raw material. Make it out of nothing. If you're going to use anything that I created, and even you that is making it, I created and put the intellect there. So the point is that God is not against science. It is sciences that puffs up man, the knowledge that I can do it without God, forgetting that it was God who gave man the breath. So if people are beginning to attempt cloud seeding, how to use technology to make rains happen, it is God that gave that man wisdom. If people are beginning to learn irrigation, dry season farming, it is God that gave man wisdom. Do you guys know that there was a time where Christians believed that eating potato was a sin? You will not believe this. This may be the first time some of us are hearing it. And these were not African Christians. Christians in Europe, in the UK, in Germany, they believed that eating potato was a sin. And the clergymen were mounting their pulpits preaching against the potato. What happened? Potato was not originally grown in Europe. I think it was grown in Brazil or something. So due to travel, some men found that this staple crop and brought it home. And then they found out that it does not grow in their homes. And they modified the genes a little bit. They did a slight genetic modification so that this potato can now grow in their region that is so cold. And when that potato began to grow in cold region, they rejected it, saying that man is now trying to play God. That's to show you how backward people were, even in medieval Europe. So today, when we see technologies, 5G, artificial intelligence, cloud seeding, many times people tend to say, oh no, the world is coming to an end. No, it is God that gave man wisdom. It was God who taught Abraham, I am the one that created the water above and the water beneath. If I lock up the water above because I want to punish the people, I can show you how to draw out the water from below. And he taught Abraham how to dig wells. And so everybody else is suffering from the same hardship. But there is another man that God speaks to and says, do this. I am locking up the heavens because I want to get their attention. But I don't want you to suffer while I lock up the heavens. I will show you another way to draw out water. It is beneath the earth. But you must be willing to roll your sleeves and do that. Technology, invention. If you get to the story of Jacob, and we'll soon get to that, but that's even not the topic we're going to study under Jacob. You see that genetic modification is from God. You see where God told him, your father-in-law is being unfair to you, and I want to transfer his wealth to you. Therefore, do this, and you will get this kind of goods. Maybe you read about the conversation between Laban and Jacob, where Jacob says, if we bring goods and cattle and sheep, and they are straight, you all take them. But if they are spot and speckled, I can take them. And he says, no problem. And why did he say no problem? Because almost all of them were straight colored. And God says, if you go there and they are eating, put this in front of them, put this in their water, arrange them this way, and then allow them to mate. And when they mate, they will all produce speckled sheep. And God taught him how to edit the gene of animals, even as far back as then. So gene modification did not start with us. In fact, I was telling someone, if Christ tarries to come and we live for another 5,000 years, men may learn how to modify the gene of a lion to the point that a lion will no longer eat people. Men can learn how to modify the gene of dogs that it may no longer bark. Men may know how to modify the gene that men can alter things through illumination and knowledge. And many times when we see this, we tend to say, oh, it is sinful, it is sinful. And that's why Christians, remember that when science started, Isaac Newton is a Christian. In fact, Isaac Newton wrote more Christian work than he wrote scientific work. He wrote more, but again, the Christian work he wrote is still there for people who care to know. Many of the early scientists were scientists on the account of their contacts with God. Today, it seems as if Christians are now comfortable with just clapping, kneeling down, praying, fasting, and doing nothing about it. God is the God of knowledge, and He can give wisdom. And He gave Isaac wisdom. He says, Isaac, dig well. Even when the enemies came and attacked that well, dig another one. They came and quarreled, dig another one. They came and quarreled, dig another one until they became tired of quarreling. Because once you see successful people, they can replicate success anywhere. I used to tell people this. I am not against the change of environment if it is commanded. If you must change, change. So let's use herpes for an instance. If you catch a lizard, an agama lizard, and you put him on an airpiece, and after 5.5 hours of flying, he lands in Gatwick Airport in the UK. What will come out of that plane? It will not be an alligator. A lizard will come out of the plane. It's just that this time, the lizard has now environmental protection. It has animal protection laws, but it's still a lizard. And that is what many people don't know. That successful people tend to, yes, there are environments where you put people, they will naturally thrive. And we've seen that happen. So that's the balance. But people who don't have it in them tend to think that the environment, when you put a stone under the ground and you keep watering it, it will not bear fruit. If you put a viable seed under the ground and you water it, it will spring up. In the case of Isaac, he has the formula for success. If you chase him out of Sokoto and take him to Taraba, he replicates it. If you move him out of Taraba and say, go to your village, he will replicate it. If you move it out of your village, anywhere he goes, you see it in Genesis 26. He was traveling, replicating success, although at a cost. Because it takes enormous amount of effort to plant in a drought. But it takes an even enormous amount of effort to start digging the earth until you get water out of it. It's not like today that people use drilling machines to drill boreholes. Even with drilling machines, it's still a hard work. Imagine how far these guys dug. And it's not now that we have well-sharpened holes. We don't know what crude implements they used, but they got out water. Today, I had a documentary that says that it is easier for people to succeed today than it has ever been in history. The knowledge has multiplied. Internet is there. Social media is there. Things are there. Young people have more platforms to succeed today than our parents. Although our parents will say to us, oh, when we went to the school, I hear it a lot. And they say it maybe to tell me about the good old days, but I laugh. Oh, when we went to school, Oka had pipe-borne water like I had today. And when we went to school, they were giving us full chicken, full egg, one chicken, 4 people would, especially for people who went to government school. When we went to school, we were eating this, eating that. Today, you guys don't have anything. Well, it is true. But then you guys didn't have internet. You guys didn't have YouTube. You guys didn't have mobile phone. That today, one young boy with one camera can reach to the world as much as Channel TV can reach to the world. And we have seen videos taken with a camera phone and they go viral and get more impressions, much more than people who spend trillions or billions or hundreds of millions to set up proper TV stations. Today, someone with just WhatsApp can reach the world. So it is easier for today's people to succeed. Yet, we find that the people who have to dig holes into the ground made more success than those of us who are living in the so-called jet age. And everywhere you see young people, excuses everywhere. Oh, Nigeria did this. Oh, Buhari did that. Oh, Tinubu did that. And we're not excusing their failures. There is ample governance failure in Nigeria. And in fact, the heavens over Nigeria seem to have been locked by reckless government decisions, as we saw yesterday. but that even in the midst of this drought, that people can still sow. I see a lot of young people today, they don't take any initiative, they don't do anything. And they can find a scapegoat in Tinubu to blame all their failures on. No effort at stretching themselves. Say, I applied for 2 jobs, I did not get it. Therefore, from morning till night, Netflix. I was saying to somebody that when we talk about electricity, it is good that Nigeria tries to fix its electricity. But make no mistake, 24-hour power supply will not mean 24-hour more productivity for some people. There are some people, once there is light 24 hours, it will mean 24 hours of movies. It will mean 24 hours of entertainment. It will mean 24 hours of game. It will mean 24 hours of pleasure. There are others, even without electricity, they can still find a way to power their offices, to power their dreams, to power their goals. Without rain, they can dig. There are people, even with rain, they won't plant. It is not Isaac. So the story of Isaac tells you, yes, there is recession. But recession is not the best time to cut back on investments. It's actually the time to go on offensive, to go on overdrive, to do more, to plant more, to sow more. But just know that sowing alone will not cut it, because in the normal times, if you sow, heavens will supply their rain. But today, you are not just responsible for sowing, you are responsible for also supplying the rain. And here is where it gets tricky as I round up. That when this man has sown, and when this man supplies the rain, and this man achieves success, as you saw with Isaac, the man now says, my own hands have made me success. I am super smart. I am successful. In my language, Ekumago. What do you call Biabia in Igbo language now? So we call it, so it's a lion. And we said that you went to the lion and plucked out its beards, which means that you are an Ikenga, you are a strong man. And this is something about prosperity, that it tends to inflate one's ego. It tends to blind one, especially those who prosper in difficult times. They tend to see themselves as superhuman. And the day I got to know about God's grace, it humbled me. I meditate a lot. And in one of the days I was meditating, it occurred to me how God gives everything to everything we ever own. And it's not a cliche. It's not a cliche. And I'll give 2 examples. Even a harlot today that exchanges her body for a living, that money she made from harlotry came from God. It might offend some people here. It might shock some people here, but think about it. So that thing you did to get that money, you said you sold your body. How much did you buy it? Who created those breasts? Who created those private parts? Who created those genitals? But then, even while you were on the bed doing the thing that made you money, God was commanding your lungs to keep supplying air. If the lungs failed at that point, harlotry has failed. The only thing that needs to spoil is for you to get a sickness and you're in the hospital. And when you see people in the hospital today, and I can't remember the time I went to the hospital, I saw this young girl, a teenager. She was going through all manner of pain. She wasn't even bothered that there were males in the room. She didn't care about her nakedness. She didn't care about anything. She didn't care who was seeing what. She did not care. She was just going through pain. And even for the harlot, the lungs, as at the time she's doing that, do you know that if a criminal goes out today to steal, to kidnap, to defraud, even after defrauding the people, that evening, God in his infinite mercies will tell the kidney, clear out the toxins. It's a command that has been given to the kidney, clear out. Only thing he needs to do is to say, this man stole today. The kidney don't function, the liver don't function. Let's see what he will do out of the money too.
And so everything man has is from the grace of God. Even things, he said, there was one man that foolishly said, I begged God for money, he did not give me. I went to Dibia, Dibia gave me money. But you were going to the Dibia and your legs carried you. You came back safely. You breathe in God's oxygen, you breathe out carbohydrates. You drink God's water. You move around in God's body, and you're saying that God did not do anything for you. So you see, because man planted in a very difficult situation, and he took the pains to water it, not just water for a day, but water it consistently. Did you know that crops that was supposed to do 7 months still did 7 months? And every day without fail, possibly morning and evening, Isaac was watering the crops. Did you know that the animals were fed? Not only was he watering his crops, he was watering the open field so that he can get grasses for the animals. That was how his animals did not die. They water and open, they just dig wells and be watering the field, drawing out water. It was difficult. And that is why many people will tell you today they are self-made billionaires, they are self-made this, they are self-made that. Arrogant people, pompous people everywhere. Because they can't see God. That business idea, who gave you the mind? Who gave you the brain? You thought you just thought it out yourself? Yes, you were part of the execution because there is a contribution that man makes. But the contribution that man makes, even in drought, does not erase the contribution of God. That you dug wells did not mean that you put water inside the wells. If there was no water underground, dig from now till eternity, there is no water to draw out, my friend. If God did not put money in that, do it from now till next year, it will not be a blessing to anybody. You say, but I attended a class in Harvard. I did this. The Bible says that it is God who gives the farmer great wisdom. It is God who gives the farmer great wisdom. In summary, difficult times, despite all that we do, will come. You can't stop it from coming. Now, there are things men do to make difficult times come. There are things men can do to make good times last. But regardless, we have seen over time, according to recorded history, that after a while, a time of difficulty usually comes. But what men do is that they apply themselves the same way they applied themselves in times of plenty. And we're saying that those things you did in times of plenty, those business skills, some of us here may have to modify our business plan. Some of us here may have to work harder. Some of us here may have to work smarter. Some of us here may have to consider new lines of businesses. Some of us may have to consider new marketing approaches. Some of us may have to consider other options. Some of us may consider taking more courses, learning new things, going to new places, trying out new things, finding out what works better. But in any sense, what worked in times of plenty it will no longer work now. The rains are not there. You have to make it rain. And then Jabba is good. Be the only response to hardship. It cannot be. If it is in your inner light and outer light, that after all evaluation, you now see that this is it, by all means go. But if it is not commanded, we have seen people who jabad. And it is interesting to note that the richest man in Africa is not in overseas. That country you are running away from, why are Indians running to Nigeria? People must ask, why are Chinese running to Nigeria, Africa? People must ask, why is it every year we see foreign direct investments? Why are people pulling out money from America to invest in Nigeria? Why are people pulling money away from UK to invest in Nigeria? Why are people pulling money away from other established places where everything is working well? At least the Tinubu did not steal their elections. At least their president was not buying private jets. but they pull out money from countries where the presidents are not buying private jets, and they invest it in countries where we say that nothing is working. And all of us, our eyes are outside, whereas people are seeing gold mine. We see hardship, they see opportunities. We say no, oh no, it's no longer time for business. The big government is, people are seeing opportunities. I pray that God gives us a new set of spectacles. Thank you so very much for attending this 13th episode of Boqer School of Government. My name is Chima Christian. Africa's morning is at hand. If there are questions, comments, contributions, or clarifications, I will spend the next few minutes with us and to take those questions, clarifications.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening to Mr. Chima. I actually followed you from Twitter to the Drought class, and it was all awesome. And although I was going to ask a question, but then I'll try to see if I can do the two at the same time. And one of what I want to ask is this: yes, I've always had this kind of mentality that one cannot excel succeed beyond the governmental policy. I mean, the governmental policy that reigns in that wherever he or she does business. Take for instance Dangote's mm, predicament currently. So I'm of the opinion that whatever policies, whatever form of government that is existence within that period of time will determine one's breakthrough or one's success. Now, bringing it to what we've learned today as regards the drought, sowing in the land and reaping bountifully, not minding the environmental challenges or the political or governmental challenges. So, sir, I will need you to. It's a question and a contribution, please, sir. I will need you to probably change my mindset because, sincerely speaking, now if I'm going to take a reference from the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 2, there was something there's a guy that posted something about this NNPC, Wando takeover and all that. And the first verse that dropped in my mind was when the Bible book of that same Isaiah 60 verse 2 says, and darkness shall cover the face of the earth, gross darkness the people. Now I said this is a spell over the nation, and not just a spell over the nation, but over each individual not to know what to do at this point. It's I don't know if you're following me, sir. I don't know.
So there are two planks that success rely on. Now, there are two extremes, and we are all against the two extremes. There is the extreme that tell people, pursue your individual success. Don't mind the collective teal. It tells them, if the roads are bad, buy 4x4. If there is insecurity, make money to have Mopo guarding you. If there is poverty, just struggle so that you no go reach your end. If there is kidnapping, just get army people, just buy bulletproof. So the hyper individualism that tends to tell people, ignore the collective good, just focus on your personal or rather your selfish goals. That's an extreme. But then there is another extreme that says, no matter what you do, you can't get anything going until the government. No. Success is on two planks. There is the individual success. Look, even in America today, there are many poor people. If you take a lazy man and plant him in the best government, he will still falter. If you take a man with a can-do spirit, plant him in the midst of the worst government, he may not thrive to the best of his capacity, but he will succeed. So I say to you this, mind the two planks. Hold your personal finances and your personal development with one hand and hold it very tight. Don't ever lose a sight of it. That at any point you can change your earnings. At any point you can move your business forward. At any point you can cause significant leap in your life. At any point you so choose, you can make change happen for you at the personal level. But that's half of the equation. The other half is that as you are growing in your personal space and you have the capacity to do so, if, for instance, you set a goal to triple your income in 2 years, it can happen, despite the fact that Tinubu may still be the president in 2 years. If you set a target now to increase your earnings and you make deliberate steps, you take concrete actions to increase your earnings in the next 3 years. I think the next election is 2027. Barring anything untoward happening, in the best case scenario, Tinubu will still be the president by 2027. If you make personal efforts and you commit to it, you can make 5 times of your current output by the time this man finishes his first term. And it's a goal you are going to achieve despite of whatever policy he's pursuing, because your plans are going to include how to navigate bad government policies, assuming that you are in a sector that government policies affect greatly. That's how. But while you're doing that, you also have to factor in, because this I went to Jahi to see a friend, and Jahi is quite a good area, like the good area in Abuja. You see a lot of houses, estates springing up here and there. But you see a lot of people sleeping in keke napep's, in shanties, in kiosks. So you see so much abundance, but then look around you, you see so much lack. So because there is so much lack, you in abundance, that's your abundance, you may have to get security men, because you can't be the only one feeding while everybody's hungry. So therefore, as you are pursuing your individual success on one hand, and you must pursue it vigorously, we must also pursue collective redesign of the society to say, I know I can make it good for myself, but as I'm doing that, I'm also putting some half of my energy into making it good for all of us. If you say that your success is dependent on government, what if over the next 10, 15 years we don't get good government? Then that means that your own is done for. Then if you say that you're only going to focus on your personal success, what if you make that money and then insecure? There was a man I was speaking with. He's a retired civil servant, and he told me the name of the organization he works with. He built a house in Borno, his village. And as I was discussing with this man, I was just saying, I hope you built this house with your money, your legitimate income. I hope you built this mansion you're talking about with legitimate income. I hope you built it. I just hope you did not steal money from the government to build this house. Guess what? His village was one of the villages that Boko Haram took. And when Jonathan pushed against Boko Haram hard in 2014, Boko Haram dynamited. Boko Haram actually moved into his house and was living there. And when the government pushed them hard, they dynamited the whole building and brought it down. So if this man, for instance, was stealing government money to build luxurious mansion, he will retire in the village. How are you sure? Even in Anambra State today, just a stone throw from my hometown, the next local government, Newi South, there are houses, mansions in the village occupied by miscreants, occupied by terrorists, occupied by people. So I hope that as you are trying to build all those mansions in the village, which is good, that we are making efforts, to make sure that the society is good, so that we can bequeath something to our children, so that we can live in a better designed society. Because if you achieve success, but your society is poor, you are still poor. But I am saying also that someone can genuinely pull himself by his bootstraps, even in an economy that is unperforming. So if you have this mindset that you can't succeed until, quote unquote, a good person is in authority, that's not a very good mindset to have. And then if you also have a mindset that regardless of who is in authority, that it doesn't concern you, we're saying that both extremes are wrong. We must pursue our individual success vigorously, and then also pursue.
You actually did a perfect um, answer to that, because and the fact that you're able to do it from the two points of view, from the individual point and from the collective point, like such that I'm not going out of I'm not going out, but then I'm being able to hold
the two extremes together. So thank you so much for that. I'll be working on that, sir.
Lecture,
We can hear you,
today,
sir.
yeah,
Good
today's
evening.
lecture has really reinforced my conviction that God is extremely good for man and has given everyone capacity to subdue the earth as he planned from the beginning. But however, except a man understand this capacity and is willing to be determined, irrespective of the circumstances, to be willing to walk in line with his conviction that he has the capacity within him to change any situation or scenario he finds himself, that challenges any man will face in any circumstance is only a capacity to kind of activate him to take what is inside of him to be able to subdue the earth and be able to fulfill his ordinance as according to God has given it into every man. Therefore, determination and willingness to rely on grace. If you are not convinced that grace is upon you to achieve and overcome your limitation, that man cannot achieve anything. Therefore, what limits us is in our mind. As long as a man has the capacity and determined to overcome the limitation he has, that man is able in any generation to achieve his goal. So today's lecture actually is that, a kind of reinforcement to me, especially for our young ones, our youths, to understand that challenges are not, things that limits you are just challenges, that you have the capacity within you if you believe that God has called you to achieve and subdue the earth. If there is not going to be difficulties, God will not have talked about subduing the earth. That means there are going to be difficulties. But those difficulties, what it takes to overcome it, has been given to every man who will rely on grace. And grace is God's ability to achieve that thing which looks difficult. God bless you.
Bless you too, sir. Thank you so very much for that contribution.
Thank you, boss. I really appreciate. I was actually rushing to meet up with this class because I know it's going to be so much fruitful and impactful. So, and I came in. When I came in, what I met was so something that I gave you kudos for, because that's another way we that have the love of this country at heart, and because I count myself as one of the youth that have the love of this country at heart. Personally, I don't think of traveling. Where I work, this is what they do. So at time when I see some people's bank statements, you know what I think? I think, with all this, and you are leaving your country. So let me go back to what I meant when I came in. I meant you were asking that. Did we imagine why foreigners are running into our country while we are trying to japa? Which is, I always think about that at home. Why? And when you made mention of that statement, I've said this is a very good selling point or fact that we can always share among ourselves with the youth, because basically the youth needs to seriously sit up and know that this country is our country. Even though we're Japan now, there's no how. There's a lot of things that will eventually push us and want us to, and we will think of coming back home. If we were able to come back home and the home that we left without putting in place or trying to add our positive value to it, how do you expect to meet the house? The house might be even worse than before you left. Basically, it's something that we should all think, okay, how can we add our own positive value to the development of this country? We should not allow all these bad leaders to be in control of our politics. So I think I still want you to please, maybe subsequent lectures too, we'll still need something like this, and then we still need to encourage or motivate the Nigerian youth to get involved in politics, because I think that's one thing I think we are lacking. And then we don't have a direction. We all need to get involved in politics. We need to go there in numbers so that we can be able to push out these bad eggs and then put the right person in the affair, then all of us will be able to now sit back and think of something that we can do on our own. So thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your money, because you've been spending, you've been doing a lot. And I want to encourage you to keep doing that. God Almighty will definitely reward us all.
Thank you so much, my good friend Abolari, and I appreciate your kind and your encouraging words. And you know, one of the things you said remind me of one of the things we've said in one of the episodes of Boqer School of Government, not on these 32 days of governance. You see, we're not against people traveling. People should travel because outward movement is also one of the ways God chooses to bless a country. Because many times God blesses a country through that country's diaspora. So a time will come when he will use affliction to push them out, and they stay and acquire gold, acquire resources. But a time will come, it's as if there is a trumpet that is blown that will bring all of them back. So we are gladly looking forward to the time where Africa's sons and daughters will come back. But then sometimes it appears as if the manner of selection reminds us of slave selection. You know, if it was born during the slave era, I wouldn't have been selected to be a slave. Those who've met me will know that I'm not of a very big type. But you know that when slave masters and inspectors come to select the slaves, they are looking for the most hardworking. They are looking for the ones that have broad shoulders. They are looking for the type that can farm in their plantations. They are looking for the type that can add value to their societies. And that is the same thing that they do today through immigration policies. They're looking for people that have minimum bank balance of 20 million, because the thinking is that if you can make 20 million in this your economy, then if we put you in our own, you will make us much more than that. They are looking for people who are ethical. They are looking for people who are hardworking. They are looking for the cream de la cream of the society. They are looking for the top of the class. And it's not just starting with the slave trade. It was even before then. So if you look at what happened to Daniel when the kingdom fell, they came to organize, arrest the princes, take them to Babylon. They didn't take everybody. They left the never do well, the Talakawas of the society, the other people of the society. But they took the princes, the educated ones. That was how they took Daniel, Meshach, and Abednego. They were king's sons. They were royalties. They took the best. Today, through visa and immigration policies, they are taking, they are selecting, they are looking at visa applications. No, this one will not add value to Canada. This one will not add value to Canada. This one has the skills we need. So if they need bricklayers, they will begin to open up their immigration policies to attract bricklayers. If they need doctors, they will begin to attract. If they need healthcare workers, they will begin to attract that. And today, it seems as if our country and many of our young people don't have a vision of their own other than that which is given to them. Many people doing masters have no business with masters, have no business with further education. In fact, they have not even made the best use of the first degree they got. They are looking for the second one in this period of academic inflation. Whereas you needed passing C's to get some jobs past few years, today the PhD hold that you have cannot even secure you those jobs. And they don't have plans of using these PhDs that they acquired. They don't have plans of using the masters. Yet, it seems that anything that will take them out of the country, and indeed anything that will take them out of their God-given destinies, is what they are running after, because that they believe they can't sow and they can't reap in period of hardship. So thank you so very much for reminding us about that. We'll continue to do our bit under God to remind our fellow young people, yes, if you have to travel, we're not saying don't travel. But then if you're running away from difficulty, the society you're running into was built by men and women who were so persuaded. Thank you so very much for that. Tomorrow we are looking at Jacob. And we've done Abraham, we've done Isaac. Tomorrow we'll look at Jacob. And each and every one, will pick one thing from Jacob tomorrow. And then after Jacob, we will deal with Joseph. Joseph is quite an important. We will deal with Joseph. And then after Joseph, we will fast forward it to Moses. From Moses, we take one from Moses, we move to Joshua. Then there is this thing, we would have jumped from Joshua to Judges, but we will stay on Caleb. There is something we want to see in Caleb's life that is important. From Caleb, we now move to Judges. There are about 16 judges. You can call them freedom fighters. Some of them are activists. Some of them are political leaders. Some of them are opposition figures. And from those 17, there are things to see. Then from 17, then you now have the first three: Saul, David, and Solomon. Then after Saul, David, Solomon, the kingdom was divided into the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. On the side of kingdom of Judah, you have 24. On the side of kingdom of Israel, you have about 23. And those 24 and 23, we only have 32 classes. So there is no way we can study these men and women in details. Someone like Saul can take up to 10 classes, but where there is no way we can study them. But we do know that there is something about them that we can find to instruct the hearts of current leaders and future leaders. So thank you so very much for coming around, and by the mercies of God, we will see tomorrow. Again, I will double down on this. We've been traveling and we've been doing quite a number of work, and we are burning cash in their thousands, if not in their tens of thousands, now piling up in more than their millions, to be able to offer these classes daily, consistently, and without fail. And we appreciate all the support you've received so far. Thank you so very much, everyone, and may God bless you.